Warning, this video contains spoilers for the entire Star Wars franchise. This video is brought to you by TV shows, like movies, but longer. What's up, Star Wars fans? Welcome back to the Hills Maniacs. I'm the Master of Movies, Clay, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite Star Wars characters from the TV shows. Now, if you saw it last week on this channel, I did my top 10 favorite movie characters, and next week I will do my top 10 favorite Star Wars actors, and this week I'm doing the TV show ones. Now, some of these will be characters that we've seen or heard of in the movies, just like last week's video was. And if you haven't seen that, go check it out after you're done watching this one, because it was really fun to think of all these different characters and to film these. Some of these will be characters that were in the movies, but they are more prominent characters in the TV shows, whether it be Clone Wars, Rebels, The Mandalorian, things like that. So I put them on this list because this is where we really get to know them, even though they are also in the movies. And you'll see what I mean later on. I'll get more in depth with that. So, number 10 on this list, I have Grand Admiral Thrawn. From what we got to see of him in Star Wars Rebels, and from what I know about him in Star Wars canon, Grand Admiral Thrawn is probably the strongest bad guy that they fight in Star Wars Rebels, and he seems to know a lot before it happens. So I don't know if he's Force sensitive. I would assume he is, and that's why Palpatine made him Grand Admiral, and I wish we could have got to see more of him, but I think they're making a Thrawn series on Disney Plus. Don't quote me on that, and if they're not, they should. But Grand Admiral Thrawn was he was a great leader for the Empire, and he wasn't afraid to take unnecessary risks that other people thought wouldn't work, and then ended up working anyways, because that's his style and that's how he was, and he seemed to know, things that would happen beforehand. And so I put him at number 10 on this list. Now, number 9, I have everybody's favorite pirate from the Clone Wars, Hondo Onaka. And the reason I put him here was just because he was a fun character. He was a kind of a comedy act, but also good and bad guy in the Clone Wars and even into Rebels. He helps Ezra out a lot in Rebels. And he's still a pirate, so he's still obviously getting something out of it. But he was just one of those characters that it's like, I hate seeing him on screen because I didn't like the character. But then at the same time, I love seeing him on screen because I do love the character. He's one of those characters that, like, I can't really relate with, but he's just fun to have on the show. Number 8, I put actually a group of people. I put Clone Force 99. Also known as The Bad Batch, which is now a show on Disney Plus. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It takes place pretty much right at the end of the Clone Wars, during Order 66, and their struggle as clones and trying to figure out how to live in the galaxy without basically working for the Empire, because they're enhanced. Their inhibitor chips didn't really work like the rest of the clones did, and so they were able to resist killing the Jedi that they were with. And they had no clue what was going on at first, and they all have unique abilities. Hunter is a really good leader and hunter, and Crosshair is good at shooting. Wrecker's really strong. Tech is really smart. Echo, who was a member of the 501st during the Clone Wars, ended up getting manipulated or experimented on, I guess I should say, and it messed him up. So now he has enhanced abilities in different aspects and stuff. So I put all of them together because you really can't pick one of them more than the other. They're all unique in their own way. So I put them all together. Now, number 7, I have Ashajj Ventress, who in the Clone Wars was Count Dooku's apprentice, and she became very powerful. And I think she actually ended up, I don't know if fully turned good, but by the end of the Clone Wars, she ended up, Dooku betrayed her, so she ended up teaming up with Ahsoka at some points. And I really don't know what happened to her after Clone Wars. We don't really hear anything about her again after that. So I don't know. Maybe she's still out there somewhere. Who knows? But she's one of those characters that you start off hating, but then by the end, you kind of feel bad for her with everything that happens to her. You know, her master turns on her. The Empire wants nothing to do with her now, and she pretty much has to go good. The entire planet of Dathomir, where she's from, was wiped out by Dooku and the droids and Grievous, and so she really has nothing left at this point. And so she makes a huge turn in the show, and I wish we got to see more of her, and who knows, maybe we could at some point, and see what happens to her. I don't know the whole backstory of her and what happens after the Clone Wars. If she dies, I think Vader might track her down at some point, but who knows. Number 6, I put Captain Rex, who was Anakin's pretty much lead clone during the Clone Wars, who also got his inhibitor chip removed before Order 66 because Ahsoka told him about it, and so he was able to resist Order 66 and actually saved Ahsoka and some other clones. And we see them again in Rebels where they help Ezra, and we find out at the end of Rebels that Rex was actually part of the Battle of Endor, which takes place in Return of the Jedi, so who knows where he ended up after that. But obviously we didn't see him in Return of the Jedi because Clone Wars came out a long time after that, or Rebels even came out a long time after that. But Captain Rex was just always one of my favorite clones. You know, he wasn't afraid to go out into battle. You know, he didn't send somebody else to do the dirty work. He would go do it, and he was one of those leaders that led by example, if you will, and that's why I think he was one of the better clones during the Clone Wars. That's why I put him at number 6. Now, number 5, I have Darth Maul, who, again, we do see him in Phantom Menace. He didn't do anything. He got cut in half. We see him a lot in the Clone Wars. He's very powerful, fueled by hatred, for Obi-Wan especially, but just in general. And then by the end, Palpatine turns on him again after Dooku turned on him, and so now he hates the Sith, basically, in a way. And so in Rebels, he ends up trying to get Ezra to join him, and he wants to rule the galaxy. He does end up ruling Mandalore in the end when he kills Duchess Satine and takes the Darksaber and fights against Ahsoka. He rules Mandalore until he's overthrown. And Darth Maul is just one of those characters that, you know, seeing the backstory of him in Clone Wars, well, I guess the further story of him in Clone Wars and Rebels, Maul in Phantom Menace was like, ooh, big deal, right? But then you see him again in Clone Wars and Rebels, and it's like, this dude is awesome, very powerful Sith, and in the end does end up getting killed by Obi-Wan, and you know he pretty much knew at that point, because he could see what was going on in the galaxy, and by the end he actually ends up asking Obi-Wan, is he worth it? And because he knew what Obi-Wan was doing on Tatooine, he knew about Luke, and I think he probably knew how the Empire would come to an end, and so Maul became very powerful at the end, and so he definitely deserves to be on this list. Now, number 4, I have Kanan Jarrus. In Rebels, he is very powerful. And you can tell he gets very powerful by the end of Rebels, because Maul actually blinds Kanan permanently, and he ends up still being able to use the Force, and that's how powerful he was with the Force. And by the end, he ends up sacrificing himself to save the rest of the group. And we do hear his voice again in Rise of Skywalker, meaning that he has fully become part of the Force. So when Rey hears the voice of all the Jedi, we hear him and Ezra, meaning they both die. And Kanan was just very powerful by the end of the Rebels series, and he was one of my favorites from Rebels, so definitely deserves to be on this list. Number 3, I have one of my favorite Jedi ever, and I don't know why he was one of my favorite Jedi. I just always, for some reason, liked him, and that's Kit Fisto. And unfortunately, we don't get to see much of him in the movies. But in the Clone Wars, we do get to see how powerful Kit Fisto actually is. He's very good at leading his clones into battle. He's very strategic when it comes to battles. And, he, unfortunately, in Revenge of the Sith, he really didn't get to do much. Now, number 2, I have Ahsoka Tano. Obviously, she's been in Clone Wars, she's been in Rebels, she's been in The Mandalorian, and she's getting her own Disney Plus series. Ahsoka starts off as the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, ends up going through the Clone War, and by the end realizes that the Jedi are pretty much using her. And they don't really need her or respect her, so she leaves the Jedi Order and goes off on her own, never to be seen from or heard from again, or so we think, until Rebels, when she pops back up, and we find out that she's, she doesn't, I don't know if she knows that Anakin is Vader at the start, but by the end she finds out what happened to Anakin, and she does help the rebellion a lot in Rebels, and then again in The Mandalorian, she helps Mando, or Din Djarin, whatever you want to call him. She helps him, and she actually discovers the name of Baby Yoda, which is Grogu, and she talks through the Force with Grogu, and so I don't know if Ahsoka knows Luke at any point in her life, but again, we do hear her voice in Rise of Skywalker when Rey hears the voices of all the Jedi, so she probably dies at some point, unless she's just really powerful now to where she can, talk through the Force like that. But Ahsoka was a very, very powerful Jedi throughout the entire Star Wars franchise that she's in. And my number 1 pick for characters from the Star Wars TV series, you have to go with Baby Yoda, aka Grogu. We haven't got to see a lot of how powerful he is yet, but we do know he is very, very powerful. He can Force heal. He can use the Force, obviously. And he's just cute. He's probably the cutest character in Star Wars. So there you go, guys. That was my top 10 picks for Star Wars TV show characters. So stay tuned for next week when I do my top 10 Star Wars actors. And I'll see you guys in the next one. May the Force be with you.
Subscribe.